Or he believes what he's always believed.
Or he's a wolf wearing grandma's dress.
Yeah. I know, I'll give you a little example of Canada. So we had the English leadership debate a week ago.
Oh, listen to this. I forgot about this.
And
What's really not just at stake, but the actual facts that they're arguing for.
well, Carney's a good example of this in Canada, to return to that.
Yeah.
You know,
Is he going to win? It seems like he's...
Clinton Jaws, please like this video so it gets out there. It actually does something. It gets it out there. And I'm posting this. Well, you know why I'm posting it. I want liberals to watch it. That's why. Jordan Peterson's on Joe Rogan today, and they're talking about Carney. And they let it all out. They basically expose Carney. And who better to talk about it than Jordan Peterson, even though I don't understand half the stuff he says. He rips Carney. He tells the world what he really is. Let's watch.
use whatever. This is one of the things that worries me about Canada at the moment. No, I know when we talked a couple of weeks ago, I expressed my concern about what was happening in Canada.
Doesn't look good.
Well,
No, it
I
doesn't.
read Carney's book, Values. I read it twice, and I understood it. He's a big DEI advocate, and he's also a net zero advocate. And
Net
Carney
zero.
says in his book, this is a good example of this, and I think also a good example of this kind of narcissism
Liberals, you understand what that means? No jobs.
that we talked about earlier. Every single financial decision that every individual or organization makes has to prioritize decarbonization above all else. Or else. And there will be many, he doesn't say casualties, but he implies that. There'll be many who pay a price along the way, but it's necessary. You know, because you can't make an omelet without breaking a few eggs. And then he says 75% of the world's fossil fuels have to stay in the ground. And this is who Canadians are seriously thinking about electing.
Yeah.
Right.
Why does he say the fossil fuels have to stay in the ground?
These are bad.
Too much carbon.
You know.
He says a lot more. Right now we're going to talk about climate change for a bit.
Yeah, say it. 'Cause
Well,
so people know it.
Well, on the climate side, when I look at the data, the thing that leaps out for me is greening. It's like the planet is 20% greener than it was 30 years ago.
What?
Okay, 20%. This is NASA data. I'm not inventing this.
Right.
Okay, and then the next, you think, oh, 20%. If 20% of the plants had vanished, you'd be sure we'd heard about that.
Yes.
Okay, so not only is there 20% more vegetation, which is a lot, I think it's twice the area of the United States that's greened. That's a lot of green. And where our agricultural production is more effective. I don't see another data point that's anywhere near as stunning as that.
I think it's a really important point what you said, that if we lost 20% of the plants, people would be freaking out.
Oh, my God. Well,
Right,
and
yet
rightly
it's-
so.
Rightly so. But yet it's not even discussed because, again, it's one of those things that invades the narrative.
That's right.
Right? It's one of those pesky facts, those pesky truths that gets in the way of the thing that you're saying, well, the apocalypse is coming.
Yeah, well, that's the thing about the narrative.
That's
is
how
like,
you win.
Okay, so
Fear.
now we talked about the psychopaths who
Psychopaths.
manipulate belief systems for their own advantage. The climate apocalypse narrative is perfectly situated to serve the purposes of the narcissists, the Machiavellians, the psychopaths, and the sadists, because it's a infinitely expanding existential threat that can be used as an excuse for anything.
Yes.
Right? It's like, I want to make your shower heads put out a needle spray so that you're cold all the time while you have a shower, while you're doing something you do every...
I can't believe that there's people out there in Canada that are actually going to vote Liberal. He doesn't want Canada to expand. They don't want to put money in your pockets. They don't want jobs. Carney wants to keep it in the ground. He wants to make it more poor. Canada is on the verge. There's a chance that Canada is not going to be Canada anymore. This is our last chance. I mean, man, I don't even recognize it. Do you recognize Canada?
Why do I get to invade your life to that degree? Well, because the planet's at stake, Joe. And who are you to privilege your shower comfort, something that trivial, over the fate of the entire planet? Well, you can use that argument at every single level.
Yeah.
And then you also think, look, if they're willing to control your life at that level of detail,
Oh, yeah.
what are they
Oh, yeah.
not willing to control?
You know what EB banned? Nicotine pouches. I buy them in America now. Nicotine pouches, they're cigarettes. And what was the reason why he banned them? So young kids don't use them in school. David Eby banned nicotine pouches. Why? Control. Why not? Pretty soon he's going to ban coffee. Caffeine.
It's like you're concerned about my shower heads, like we're out of water, which
Right.
we're not at all. So what won't you control? So you think, well, the psychopaths
Control everything.
are edge cases. They'll move wherever the power is. They find a narrative that can be used to strike fear in the hearts of people and to justify compulsion. They ally themselves with that belief claim, and then they ratchet themselves up status hierarchies without any true reputational validity, riding on that edge of fear and power.
And everybody
Right.
believes it.
Right. The climate apocalypse narrative is a social contagion that's driven by power-mad psychopaths who are hell-bent on using fear and compulsion to make sure everyone steps in line so that they can continue with their acquisition of undeserved power.
It's also
that's
effective
Canada.
enough that the people that are underneath the power comply and do the job of the man for the man.
Yeah, well, that's the advantage of using fear and compulsion,
Yes.
right? It's like, well, I have to go along with this because my leaders who had built up a certain degree of credibility are telling me that, you know,
Yeah.
the apocalypse is nigh. And who am I to, well, first of all, question, because, God, there's a hard thing to figure out. You know, what's the global effect of human activity on the climate for the next 100 years? Well, good luck figuring that out. But this is why
all
I'm making it
share
more
the same
psychological
sky.
this time. It's like these are people who are clearly playing power games for their own benefit, and they're spinning up these conspiratorial narratives and riding on them.
Right here, it gets good. This is the part. The news, it moves fast, and it's just not about keeping up. It's about seeing clearly. And that's why I use Ground News. They show you how it's being reported. Left, right, and everything in between all in one place. No algorithm deciding what you should see, and no echo chambers. See for yourself at ground.news/based. Take this recent story. Polyev promises to crack down on scammers. Here's how Ground News broke it down. The Hamilton Spectator, which leans left, ran with, "Where's Polyev's healthcare plan?" Completely changing the focus and raising uncertainty. Meanwhile, the National Post, which leans right, was more straightforward. Conservatives promise to crack down on scammers who target seniors. Same story, two different headlines. With Ground News, you can compare coverage at a glance, see who owns the outlet, and get a real sense of what's driving the narrative. Everybody should be using this feature, Blind Spot Feed. It shows you stories that one side of the spectrum isn't covering at all. Stuff you literally wouldn't know existed if you were only getting your news from one source. So if you're tired of being force-fed only one version of the truth, check out Ground News. Click the link in the description and go to ground.news/base to get 40% off their Vantage plan, the one I use. Gives you unlimited access. Or click the QR code that you see on the screen. Over 1 million people have this app. Guys, start thinking for yourself. They do.
They don't even understand what's really not just at stake, but the actual facts that they're arguing for.
Well, Carney's a good example of this in Canada, to return to that.
Yeah.
You know,
Is he going to win? It seems like he's...
the polls
favorite.
certainly indicate that,
Yeah.
and maybe with a majority government. And I can see why. Like, Canadians were accustomed to having everything go pretty well, and we could be morally superior to you Americans because that was also fun. And we'll never forego that opportunity. And Trump has provided it in spades in the last month. So we look at Carney, and we don't pay any attention to politics, and we certainly don't read his goddamn book.
No, we don't.
And so we see someone who looks like a banker from the 1990s when everything was just fine in Canada and Canadians were just as rich as Americans and the whole country was stable and peaceful. And we think, well, you know, we kind of made a mistake on Justin. Turned out he was a little incompetent, a little narcissistic. And maybe we shouldn't have voted for him just because he legalized marijuana, because that's actually what brought him into power the first time. And so we kind of made a mistake. But now, look, we've learned, and we're not going to be fooled by narcissistic pretenders. And Mark Carney used to be governor of Bank of England, you know, and that's pretty good. That's a pretty good resume, and it certainly looks like that. And yet, he believes that 75% of the fossil fuels in the world should be left in the ground, and that there's nothing that should guide your purchasing decision by force other than decarbonization.
Canada, they're taxing carbon. What is wrong with us to allow that? The majority of you might be fine with that.
Observer from afar that Pierre was gaining steam, and it looked like he was going to win.
Oh,
and they
Landslide.
seem to have taken the wind right out of his sails.
Well, two things happened.
Pierre was going to win.
Trudeau resigned.
He might.
Oh, yeah, the Liberals were headed for extinction. It was going to be the worst defeat of a governing party in Canada ever. They might have lost their official party status. So they were done. Well, they pivoted, brought in Carney, who'd be...
Can I just say something? I'm sorry, but I have to say it. A nurse came up to my wife the other day. She hasn't decided who she's going to vote for. I said, what are you talking? She's frontline, obviously. Poliev. No, all the nurses, they like the Liberals. I'm like, why? Because we don't know. Canadians don't even know what's going on. We don't even pay attention.
They pivoted, brought in Carney, who'd been advising Trudeau. He's put himself up as an outsider,
the entire time.
A competent outsider, a lot of private experience in the private domain.
Not a politician.
A steady hand at the helm. It's like you were Trudeau's economic advisor for 10 years. 10 years. And there's going to be more of the same under you. And now you're pretending to be an industrialist, even though you were one of the leaders, the world's leading authorities on DEI, ESG, and net zero. That's Mark Carney. All you have to do is read his book, which people don't, of course, because it's a book. First 3 chapters will do the trick. Well, now, either he's decided that every single thing he ever believed was wrong right to the core and hasn't apologized or let anyone know that, and now he's actually Mr. Industry, which is how he's presenting himself to Canadians.
Right.
Or
he's a lion sacker.
Or he believes what he's always believed.
Or he's a wolf wearing grandma's dress.
Yeah, he's a benevolent wolf. Well, that's why the wolf wears grandma's dress, isn't it? It's like, there's no one nicer than me.
So how does Canada correct course?
Oh, God.
People either correct course by waking up or by experiencing severe pain. And it looks to me like we've chosen the severe pain route. We already make 60 cents. We already produce 60 cents to every dollar you Americans produce, even though we were at parity 10 years ago.
More.
And so after 4 more years of Carney, we could easily have that down to 50 cents.
That's a warning.
Spiraling housing prices, a lot of social instability in Canada. And I'll give you a little example of Canada. So we had the English leadership debate a week ago.
Oh, listen to this. I forgot about this.
And the powers that be, who organized the debate, the legacy media types, with CBC radically involved, couldn't figure out how to exclude rebel media.
And YouTube creators.
Ezra Levant, who's been buzzing about for 10 years, causing trouble like a right-wing tabloid journalist, which is what he is. Well, they didn't want him in the press scrum for the leaders after the debate. So they canceled it. They canceled the journalists' interviews of the 4 leading contenders for Prime Minister in Canada. The point is they canceled the journalist scrum after the English language debate.
That's so
And no
fascinating.
one complained. If your guy's leading, why ask questions? That's the legacy media in Canada. It's the CBC.
Right.
It's state-funded, right? Right to the core. 1.4 think about this, Joe. This is our bloody state media. It's so funny. $1.4 billion in direct government subsidy and $600 million in federal advertising per year. $2 billion. Go to the CBC website on YouTube.
Insane.
You look at their last 20 videos. I'll guarantee that not a single one of them has more than 200 views. Right, which means the people who made the video clips didn't watch them.
They got low numbers,
Right.
that's for sure.
That's what you get for $2 billion. Now, everyone in Canada who's older than 55 watches legacy media.
Right.
And Poliev said he'd defund the CBC. So you can imagine they're not exactly covering him in a positive way.
I watched the debate where he kept getting talked over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jagmeet Singh.
Fascinating.
He's
to
such
watch.
fun with his pink turban.
Yeah.
He's such a fashion icon. Luckily, he's going to lose his own seat, and his party's going to be devastated. That's the socialists. They're going to be devastated so badly that they won't have official party status.
But it's incredible to watch that in Canada, where I've always thought at least your discourse is much more polite.
Yeah, was. I don't know if you noticed this, but one of the participants in the debate was a Canadian separatist. We literally have a Canadian federal party, federal, localized in Quebec, whose stated intent is to break up the country. It's very sad.
Do you
and I
think?
was hoping...
They could be the 51st state.
Yeah, well, that's what happened. So two things.
Yes.
We're back to that.
We are the 51st state of another country because it's not Canada.
That was the big one.
Carney showed up just in the nick of time to save the burning damsel from the train tracks or
And
whatever
Trump.
the hell it is. And
The rhetoric.
then Trump, he just timed it so badly. And
Yeah.
he didn't know. He didn't know what it would do. He didn't know. But that's also...
How do you not know that people have national pride?
Yeah, he knew that, but he didn't know what the electoral consequences would be. He didn't know that would shift them to the Liberals so radically. And he's going to pay for that because once Carney is elected, if that happens, Trump will not have a more seasoned enemy in the West.
Boy.
Right? Carney's very well connected, very, especially in Europe and the UK, very well.
Canada is amazing, but we got these twats that run it. And they really are weak. Some are psychopaths. They only care about power. That is why Carney is running. I'm not a politician. What are you doing then? Go away. Why do you want to continue to ruin us? Which is going to happen if he's elected. Ground News, guys. Click the link in the description. That's where you go for the truth. Bye-bye.